Here's some information for those of you that are really advanced players and people that really want to get into the theory of the game. You know the most difficult aspects of the game are using all the mainly the rights and the lefts. The highs and the lows aren't really a problem. It's the rights and the lefts. And everybody knows that if you address the ball way over on the right side, for example, we know that the cue is going to get deflected slightly off to the left. And conversely, we know that if we aim on the left side, the ball is going to get deflected slightly off to the right. And what we all do is we compensate. We actually, in effect, deliberately aim to miss the ball, and we guess on how much it's going to deflect. But I'd like to give you an idea of why that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. What a lot of the professional players do, even though they don't know it themselves, I've had these conversations with them and they deny that they're doing it, but that they are. What they have a tendency to do, especially these people who talk about always staying pretty close to the center, what they do is they tuck with their shooting hand to put the right hand English on it, and they throw with their shooting hand to put the left hand English on it. So it's a tuck and throw. Now here's what's interesting about it is when you tuck, notice the cue stick's no longer aiming directly at the ball, it's actually going off to the right. And then it's going off to the right, but because I'm hitting the cue ball on the right side, it deflects it back and makes the ball. But the fly in the ointment is, how much does your cue deflect? And why would the tucking and the throwing work or not work in your case? Let me explain a little further. If I have a very short bridge, say only about 3 inches, I have to throw a long ways in order to get a lot of right hand English on the ball. On the other hand, if I use a real long bridge, now I'm only having to tuck or throw a little bit. So what you're really supposed to do is tune the length of your bridge to the type of cue you have. The more your cue deflects, meaning harder tip, bigger diameter, the more it deflects, the shorter the bridge you would use. Because it's deflecting more, you want to be aiming further right, and you do that by having the shorter bridge. If you have a real thin shaft, or one of these so-called zero deflection shafts, they're not zero, but they're closer to zero, then you might have to get back a little bit further for this system to work. But for me, in the cue I have, it's set up for about this 7-inch bridge. Now watch, I'm aiming dead center, and I'm going to come through the ball with right hand English. And notice for the most part, it just went straight. I didn't lose it one way or the other. Now I stand up with the same line, center, and I throw, and notice once again, the ball didn't move. Because I have a shaft and a tip that's tuned to the length of my bridge. It is probably easier to do this, like here I'm going to try to hit the rail with a lot of right and come over to here. It is easier to aim a little closer to the center. Of course, in this case I'm going to use high, and then simply tuck, like that. Notice I tucked. You can see that. You should be able to see it when the cue comes through crooked. Now, if you don't do it this way, I really think this is an easier way to do it, because if you don't do it this way, now you actually have to aim with your stick way offline, and then hope that you can gauge how much it's going to tuck or throw. Whereas if you have the proper length bridge for the type of cue you have, you can simply aim always in the center as far as low, middle, high is concerned, and then simply tuck or throw in order to put the English on the ball. Give this a try. You'll find it interesting. Vary the length of your bridge, and you'll notice you'll miss one way. If you get too short, you'll miss the other way. But if you get just right, you'll be able to tuck and throw and make the shots. This might give you an easier way of learning to use rights and lefts, because as we all know, especially what's considered to be opposite English, everybody's nemesis, cutting the ball slightly to my right, using right English, that's what everybody calls their opposite English. Again, if you tuck or throw, you might simplify the entire exercise of using rights and lefts when you're stroking them fairly firm. Give it a try and email us. Tell us what you think.